Okay, everyone, welcome back to Uncommon Ground. I am Mike, and to my left is Sam McGregor, pastor at Allison Creek Church. So,
Hello, everyone.
We've been doing this podcast and putting some interesting topics out there. Hopefully, you watched all of them and you've now caught up and everything like that. But if not, definitely go back and watch the others. But today,
You can binge watch.
You can.
So you can spend like a good Saturday just binge watching Uncommon Ground. And
Yeah.
that would not be a wasted day.
no, and then you can do it again the next weekend.
And you could, yeah.
So today, trying to figure out what to talk about. We've been talking about a lot of different things past ones, but one thing kind of came up after talking with my dad this past week, and I thought it was kind of an interesting topic. So my question to you is, why do you believe in God?
Well, that's obviously kind of a core question. For one, I think it does go back to, I've got to be honest and say that's what I was taught to believe as a child. I was raised in a Christian home and with parents that modeled for me that this is what we do. We are involved in a church. We're active in a church. We're there on Sunday mornings and we do the youth group, and so, I was raised in a culture where there really wasn't a question about it, and I would say not an option, but it was just who I grew up with, and so it was instilled in me from a very early age that God is a part of our life and God is a part of this family, and growing up on a farm with the impact of weather and things outside of your control, that what was modeled for me was God is in control, and we trust that, and so I have to be honest and say, it was instilled in me as a core belief. Now, as I say that, I recognize there are plenty of folks who grow up in the same kind of environments who decide that's, not what they want to continue believing. So then when I go off to college, it's the first time that I feel like my faith becomes my faith and not the faith of my family. And so when I was a freshman in college at Clemson, I remember having kind of a choice to make between the folks that I was living on the hall with, who were living one type of lifestyle that I wasn't necessarily comfortable with. I wasn't comfortable with it. Not that it was a bad lifestyle. It just was just different than what I had grown up with. And then when I got to college, I immediately went to the Presbyterian Student Association there at Clemson, and found friends that I felt spoke the same language, who understood where I came from, and I understood where they came from, and so it was a place that I felt natural being a part of. And so for me, it was very easy for me to continue to develop those relationships with that Christian group that nurtured me. So part of it is I was born into it. Part of it is that it was my place where I felt comfortable being around other Christians. But then I think the third level is on a deeper level, as I have questioned that, and as I have questioned my faith, and as I have gone through those periods of time of challenge, for me, it's been reinforced of God's presence being there, and God's presence guiding me in ways that go beyond anything that I can explain, or beyond any ways that I can just pass off as random. One example for me is when I was going through a particularly difficult time as pastor of this church, where there was a group of folks that determined that I should not continue here as pastor. And I felt like, and so I listened to that and explored other routes to go to not be pastor here anymore, exploring other churches, exploring other non-church ministry. And through that whole experience, I kept having random things happen, random conversations, random people being placed in my life that were saying to me, no, I want you to stay here as pastor, which seemed to go against what the message I was getting from a lot of some folks in the church. And so so it's those kinds of experiences that I've had in my life in different random times of feeling this presence of God guiding me forward, and or reassuring or directing in different ways than I would have normally gone. I think about the time when my wife and I were dating, Catherine, and when we started dating, I was questioning, is this the right thing? Should I pursue this relationship? And so I was walking outside at the time, and I was looking up at the sky. So I was having these deep conversations or deep prayer, and I look up and I see a shooting star. Now, okay, is it a random shooting star? Maybe, yeah. Shooting stars happen. But for me, it was a divine sign to say, okay, this is what I want. It is right to continue in this relationship. So, it's those kinds of moments that I could pass off as just random events or natural events, which shooting stars are random natural event, easily explained. Or, to me, in my faith, do I interpret them as signs of God's presence in my life, guiding and directing me forward in whatever ways.
So I thought it was interesting that you were talking about, I guess one of your questioning moments was possibly the people in the church. Is that one of the times possibly?
Yeah.
So my question is if that was a time of you having doubts in what you were doing and stuff like that, couldn't you also see it the other way around? I'm playing devil's advocate. But like, if people are telling you that they don't want you here, maybe that would have been God telling you that you weren't supposed to be here. You're supposed to be somewhere else. And you could have seen this the same way, that it was a message. Because it seems like what you're describing to me is that you're trying to see messages to keep your faith in God. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, what I would say is I had decided that, okay, I should leave. Okay.
Right.
That and so I was heading in that direction, and quite honestly, was preparing to leave because I felt like that's what everything was moving in that direction. But when I kept having these moments that were going against everything that appeared to be the direction of the way things should go, and to me those were moments that were stronger, more powerful, more clear than the messages I was getting that I should leave. And because I was not I was not looking for signs to stay. And I understand the question because what happens so much in human psychology is we look for stories and experiences that reinforce what we already believe. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's why if you're conservative, you watch Fox News, so it will reinforce what you already believe. If you're liberal, you watch MSNBC, so it will reinforce what you already believe. Whatever. And people do that in church world where if you're conservative and you want to reinforce what you already believe, you'll go to a conservative church that will reinforce it, and vice versa. If you want to go, if you consider yourself liberal and want to go to a quote unquote liberal church, and people do that with data all the time. Mm-hmm. That they will pick and choose the data to reinforce what they already believe. And so I'm very aware of that and I'm cognizant of that in my experiences. But I think that what faith for me is being truly open to seeing God guiding you in a direction that maybe is not reinforcing what you already believe. And that's a challenge in faith to truly be open to having your pre-existing beliefs challenged, and because there are things that I am in a different place in my faith journey about some things that I believe than I was last month or several weeks or a few years ago. So I think that's what faith growth is all about, is being willing to examine and re-examine and to listen to different viewpoints and biblical viewpoints and whatever.
I just think it's very easy for you to, or anyone really, for let's say that you did leave the church and you went somewhere else at that time, and during your transition you feel like you feel like maybe God wasn't telling you what you wanted to hear or whatever. But then after you're in your new position, wherever that is, you feel like, oh, this is where I was supposed to be. God wanted me to come here. I feel like no matter what your path is, people are going to try to squeeze in that this was God's determination for you to do this, no matter what your outcome is. So whether you stayed here, it was God's plan. Whether you went somewhere else, it was God's plan. I feel like people can do that with anything and make it seem like that's the, I don't want to say excuse, but kind of like their excuse to say that God was there with them no matter what their outcome was. So like that's part of my thing. Like when I was talking to my dad about it, like mm-hmm. I was trying to, he kept saying all these things and some of them contradicted themselves, and I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And he was thinking about it and trying to figure it out, and then like it seemed like every path, it didn't matter what the decision was, whether it was good or bad at that moment, it was always like, oh, well, this was supposed to be the plan. Just at that time, it seemed bad, but that's where God wanted me to be. And I kind of feel that people want God in their life so badly that they're willing to put them wherever they need it to be to make them feel better about whatever their situation is.
Well, I agree with you to a point that, people will make stupid decisions and then say, well, God blessed that, or God wanted that to happen. I'm not sure I have a real good answer for you, and because I do think people do that, and I see that all the time of people giving God a whole lot more credit for bad decisions or misguided decisions, and that's a hard question, and it's hard to come up with a good answer. I think for me it takes a lot of patience, trying to be patient and trying to be open and listening to it, because in those moments of greatest insecurity, I hope that my antennas are great, are the greatest open to hearing what God is guiding me to do, because I think too many times we do jump out and make rash decisions and then expect God to bless that decision. I'm sure I gave a real good answer.
No, I mean, it makes sense, and I can understand it. I mean, it was going back again with what my dad and I were talking about, because, again, it kind of flowed into what free will could or could not be, because I was trying to discuss with him, like, if God guides us on these paths all the time, then we don't have free will. And then he was saying that we do have free will, but yes, God knows what we're going to do before we do it. And I said, if that's the case, it's not free will. It's already a path that's placed before us.
Well, I like to think that God's got the big picture wrapped up, but that we do have free will as far as whether or not we're going to be a part of that bigger picture, and whether we're going to get in the flow of the river or whether we're going to battle upstream, or whether we're going to be on the side and watch the river flow. And so for me, what faith and what deepening in my faith is getting farther out and trusting myself farther out into the river of where God is flowing things.
But just with what I was saying with my dad, it's like, if God knows what you're going to do, like what your path is, if you decide not to go with the stream and go against it and trying to fight hard, that means that God knows that, and he already knew before you even were going to do it. So your path was still predetermined.
Well, I would say that God knows me so well, God probably has a pretty good idea of what I'm going to do.
So I need to take God to the casino so I could get good bets, because he knows.
Well, he knows you're probably going to be stupid if you bet a bunch of money at the casino. But if I am so let's go with that. If I am somebody with an addictive personality and I walk into a casino, then it's pretty sure God knows what's going to happen when I get into that casino. But for me, let's say I am that kind of person, then my prayer to God is to say, okay, I know that I have those traits, and so God, guide me to the places that are healthy for me. I had a marvelous conversation with somebody this week, and this person, I was able to affirm them that the decisions that this person is making in light of some of their own health issues that they were facing. And so I think that because this person is making those good choices that I feel God is guiding this person to do, then that's going to help them experience the healing that God yearns for this person. So
okay, that's interesting.
That's interesting.
No, it is.
What does that mean?
No, because I'm getting different answers from different people when I ask them certain questions.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's almost like there's no one way to have you feel what God is or what God is that you believe in or whatever. Because another thing, I'm putting my dad on the spot a lot, but I mean, it was just it was the conversation.
You know he's going to be listening.
I know he's gonna be listening. We'll have more conversations, but it's one of those things. I mean, but that's what I like. I like having conversations with people. It's one of those things. When I was asking him, one of the reasons that he said that he believes in God, or that he believes God is real, even though we went on some weird journeys about maybe God's an alien and all these other things, but that'll be another topic. But one of the things that he told me is that he believes that God is real because there are different people that had similar experiences that wrote about it and wrote in the Bible, their chapters and everything like that. But everyone's experience was so similar and everything like that like confirmed his faith that God is real because these different people had this experience. And I posed a very interesting question to him, and he didn't know how to answer. And my question was, do you believe in mermaids? Like the actual like humanoid, like hybrid of a fish and a human mermaid.
Well, my wife went to a mermaid swim this week, so they must be real. So
did they breathe underwater? Do they have tanks?
I don't know. She didn't, this friend of ours and who's a woman invited women to come to her pool and they had a mermaid swim. So it must be real then. So there was this mermaid swim this week. So mermaids must be real.
Was it a costume or was it real fish?
I don't know. I was not there, Mike.
There are some more questions that need to be answered.
I was just told there was a mermaid swim, and that was on the calendar in my house.
And you just took that as real because you were told that.
I was told that, yeah.
And so you took it on faith that mermaids are real.
Well, it was for this group. Mermaids were real for this group because they had an experience of being mermaids.
I guess.
Whatever that means for them.
Okay. But my dad didn't know how to answer.
I think I've thrown you on that answer.
No, you didn't really throw me because you should have asked more questions.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't need to know any more about the mermaid swim.
See, I would have liked to know more information.
Oh, okay.
So I could determine what was going on.
Okay.
So, and that's how I am. That like I don't, and that's how I see my faith or my non-faith or however you want to look at it is that I question things. And I mean, I asked that question to my dad, and he did not know how to answer. And his response to me was, he believes there's things in the ocean that look like mermaids. And my response was, that's okay, but do you believe that all these sailors have written their stories that are on different ships, that there was a siren in the ocean that looked like a mermaid that drove all these sailors to crash their ships into the rocks? That looked like humans, these beautiful, kind of creatures or whatever. All these different sailors that had all these different experiences, that wrote all their own stories. Do you believe in mermaids? And he could not answer me. Not in the same way that he said that he believed in God. Even though he hasn't seen God in like an actual form per se, but he read about it in books and believed it through books. But he couldn't do it the same thing with a mermaid. Okay,
so if I'm a sailor, and again, the waters are dangerous, it's unknown. You were talking about people who were going into, what is considered the chaos. And so stories come back that, hey, there were mermaids out there, sirens or whatever. So you have that implanted in your brain. So you're going to look for that. And so when you get to those moments where you then see natural events happen, because you have been predisposed to look for that, then you're going to see it, and you're going to, and plus you don't want to be the odd one. If all your friends are talking about seeing mermaids, then you're going to want to see a mermaid too.
And you don't think that could be the same in the Bible? That people walking through a desert in the heat and the exhaustion and tired and lack of food, lack of water, you see mirages out in the desert that make you see things and hear things. And you don't want to be the last one out, so you're going to go with it. I'm
not going to argue with you. I think that could be the case. However, therefore, does my experience say that those experiences are not valid, or do my experiences say that those experiences could be valid? And so as I compare those biblical stories versus my own experience reinforces me to believe those stories, but also to believe those stories in a point that it doesn't mean it has to literally be true for me to believe the story. Does that make sense? That when someone talks about their experience of God and the way they describe that experience, it doesn't have to literally be true for me to believe that they experience God in that moment.
But again, if you've been told to look for God and you try to look for him and you see something, you just say that that's God, is that really God?
Well, and unfortunately, I think what a lot of organized religion has done is narrowed down the scope of where God can be experienced. And I think that part of my role as a pastor is to help expand where folks can experience and see God. And a lot of folks who have turned away from the church because where the church has told them that they need to experience God, their experience is, that's not where I see God. And so therefore, if you're telling me that there's only a very rigid way to experience God, and so that's where you get a lot of folks rejecting organized religion. And part of what I see as my calling is to try to connect with at least some of those folks that maybe feel like what they've been taught through organized religion, that there is an experience with God that is different than the rigid way that they were taught God is to be discovered.
So do you think that in whole, I'm not saying in everyone, but just a collective, that the majority of organized religion has actually hurt itself in the way people look at religion nowadays?
Unfortunately, I would say yes.
So then do you think the change for religion then?
For me, I think organized religion, the change that we have to be about is not being so legalistic, not being so rigid in defining how God is revealed, but being open to ways that God is revealed that may be outside of the ways that a very rigid understanding of revelation happens.
Okay. I'm a little foggy on that answer, but
I'm foggy on that answer too.
I can kind of put some of it together and understand what you're saying. But is it something that basically, like, the church needs to go away and it needs to start again?
No. I don't. I think the church is here for a purpose. I do think the pandemic has given us an opportunity, but unfortunately, I think a lot of churches are missing the opportunity of reset and of having things basically shut down for a while, and to examine why we do what we do, and to start as a entrepreneur instead of trying to recapture something that existed before. Because I think if we have an entrepreneurial kind of attitude, then we'll discover some new ways of experiencing God, and through some new people of experiencing God. So no, I don't think organized religion should go away, but I do think that we need to be open to the ways that this is an opportunity to function in a different way.
Okay. That's cool.
Okay.
All right. Well, I think that's all I had in my head for today's.
That sounds
Stuff.
good. Sounds like a good conversation, I hope.
So, and I mean, I got some other stuff for some future ones. I got some stuff I want to talk about, but we'll be talking about off camera so you can prepare for it.
Okay.
But and that gives you some excitement probably for some stuff coming up.
I'm excited. So good.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about your own faith in God or whatever it may be, definitely let us know. You can message Pastor Sam or even ask me some questions, and we can go from there. So we hope you enjoyed it. Definitely check out our other episodes if you haven't yet, and we'll see you on the next one.
All right. Take care.
Later, guys.